and welcome to Life Chats with Maggie and Bunny. I'm Maggie.
And I'm Bunny.
How are you today, Bunny?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm
Good.
excited for this episode.
Today, we are going to be revealing our spiritual side with our audience and talk to you about embracing our inner woohoo.
Yes.
Bunny and I love talking about the woohoo. So today, we're going to pull the curtain down and whatever comes out, because we haven't pre-discussed this other more than coming up with what we're going to talk about.
Right.
So I say, let's start it off, Bunny. I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
What is what you would consider the strangest of the woohoo occurrences you've had?
Oh my goodness.
I can ask that to you because I know you've had a few.
Yeah, no, I have. And that's the thing. And I'm like, in the strangest, I thought first you were gonna ask me to define woohoo. So I think I'll do that first. Just as a thing. Like, what is it that it means to me? Like,
just
what
in case somebody doesn't know.
Well, yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
And
good idea.
And what it kind of means to me. And
that's why you're in charge.
Yeah, as if so we're both in charge, remember? So anyway, so what it is for me is it's the things that aren't the traditional or conventional ideas that we get taught in society that are acceptable. So, the seeing is believing, the things that you can touch and that you can go through science and actually measure and all of those kind of things. Those are it's the stuff that's beyond that, the stuff that is, even when you're a kid and believing in Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy and all of those kind of things, the stuff that's unseen, the things that are magical. And I have always believed in that stuff. So with the fact of unicorns and Bigfoot, Yetis and ghosts and angels and being able to communicate with dead, people who died. So all of that kind of stuff, even synchronicities, that's also to me and signs and symbols that you get. And, even the time and a whole bunch of different things. So there's so many different things that are included in that. Now, when you ask me what is the biggest one, it's so funny because I start to kind of ruffle through the files in my brain of what
I didn't say the biggest, I said the strangest.
Oh, the strangest. Okay. Well, to me that kind of would be the biggest because it would be the most memorable, the because it is the strangest. And I don't know, I've had a lot of synchronicities in my life. I think this is probably going to be, but it's probably going to be the time that I saw Steve in my room at nighttime a couple of months after he died. I was asking him, to so I'll go a little bit back, and just for people who don't know, Steve is my late husband who passed away December 8th of 2017. And I was working at the time in a call center, and every time I had a break or lunch, I would call him and talk to him the whole time. And he was kind of the reason that I stayed in that job as long as I could, because he was the way that I kind of let out my stresses and my annoyances and everything. And so when he passed away, my first thing was how am I gonna, who am I gonna talk to? How am I gonna spend my time? And what am I gonna do? Who am I gonna tell my things to? And so I started writing him a letter every day, sometimes a couple of times a day if I really needed to tell him some things. And on this particular night in February, probably, like I said, it was somewhere around the 8th of February, could have been a few days before, a few days after. I was really missing him, and I was journaling, and I was like, I really need to see you. I really need to know you're okay. I was pouring myself out to him. And I was laying in bed, and my youngest son had taken to laying in the bed with me as well, and he was moving. And so I turned to look at him, and I saw an apparition on the side of the bed. And in the time it took me to finish rolling over, he turned and went through the door, and the door opened and my cat walked in, and the door was closed. So I was like, And it was like right when he went through that the door opened and then the cat walked in. So I was like, and of course, at first I was like, was that real? And it was 2018. And it only took until last week when I realized I was retelling this story to somebody. And I realized I could never explain how I had seen him because I kept saying he was like a green, like light color. I couldn't explain what it was. And now I have it. On May 10th of 2024, there was a big solar storm and we got to see Northern Lights. And so that green color that you see in Northern Lights, that's what he looked like. So that's what it was. It was an outline of him, almost like an illustrated or like a cartoon drawing in that green color. That's what it was. And
but it looked like him.
It looked like him, but younger. So it was, and he had his hair, which he had gone through chemo, so he had lost his hair. But it looked like him, which I didn't know him younger. Like I didn't know him until he was in his 40s. But I knew, I 100% knew it was him. He was wearing his favorite jean jacket, which I had actually bought him, and I still have. And I could just tell it was him. Like I could feel it was him. I just knew it was him. And it was almost like I wasn't supposed to see him, or like he wasn't supposed to be there, and that's why I wasn't really allowed to see him for very long. And so he turned, and that's the only time I remember seeing like a spirit or a ghost or something. I say that because I think I may have experiences when I was younger, but I don't remember them. So, but that's the biggest one for me. How about you?
Well, probably the weirdest, strangest one for me that kind of began my whole journey into the woohoo a little further was when my mother was dying and visited my coworker, because I had never heard of it before, that somebody close to death could even possibly go visit somebody.
Right.
And I mean, my mom had never met this coworker. But yet the coworker knew that this person coming to talk to her was my mother. Knew. And didn't just do it one time, did it over the course of weeks, and talked to her about things that I needed to heal in my life.
Right.
So miraculous, because there is no way this woman would know those things, because I had only just started working with her a few months before. And like, she wouldn't even know the things that she later told me that my mother told her. Like, there was no doubting that my mother went to her,
right?
That my mother's spirit went to her. There was no doubting it, because there is no way on this earth she could have found out the things that she found out. None whatsoever.
Right.
So that was probably the strangest thing, and probably the most powerful thing that impacted my spiritual journey.
Right.
Because it went against everything that I had been taught growing up about spirituality and about Christianity and that type of thing. Totally went against what I had been traditionally taught.
Right.
So it caused those worlds to collide and go, whoa. And it was probably more than a year before I could even talk about it.
Really?
Outside of my just talking to that girl, because like, I knew people would think maybe I was strange, because
at minimum,
at minimum, because that doesn't happen. People don't travel between life and death. Even though my mom did for months. Like, she was here but there, she traveled between both realms for quite some time. And so not only does that not happen, but the fact of it also colliding with what I believed spiritually. And so that kind of rocked my world enough that I had to look into it. I had to figure out what was going on. And it kind of was the gateway for me into the woohoo.
It's funny you say that, because that is like, even Steve's death also kind of pushed me more into the woohoo world, the woohoo side, the spiritual side, to like and a lot of times people do talk about that, how a family member's death or somebody close to them, that their death would sometimes even a pet or something like that would actually
Mhm.
open, and it's
Yeah.
almost like because like their death kind of thins the veil for you a
Yes.
little bit, so that you can kind of like almost like they're an anchor on the other side that kind of
Yeah.
helps you
And that's
cross
kind
over.
of how it was explained to me when I finally did get up the courage. And I'm
Hmm.
talking courage because when I finally did get up the courage to talk to a spiritual mentor, at the risk of outing myself
Yeah.
that this happened, when I did get up the courage to talk about it, that's the way he explained it to me, is that the veil between life and death, when somebody is nearing death and you're with them, that veil opens.
Hmm.
And if you're somebody who is open to the other side, it opens a little more and it opens a
Hmm.
little more. And now, with what I do as a death doula and working with the dying and the grieving, like, I don't even know if I have a curtain
Yeah.
because it kind of just came open and many things happened. And so it was when that was confirmed to me, that maybe I wasn't crazy,
Yeah.
maybe it really was real. That opened the door for me to invite the reality of this new reality.
Hmm.
And, I had always grown up believing and being taught that I could talk to God.
Right.
So if I could talk to God, why
Yeah.
couldn't I talk to angels? Why couldn't
And
I talk to spirits? Why couldn't I talk to beings?
yeah, we've discussed, so just for our listeners who don't know, Maggie was raised in a religious background, and I was raised more in a scientific background, but both of us still have that like 1 foot or even a peeks into the spiritual side for our whole life too, right? You didn't agree with all of the things that you had been taught in the traditional organized
Mhm.
religion way. You didn't agree. You questioned, is what I
I
should say.
didn't
You questioned.
understand. It didn't.
Yeah.
Some things didn't make sense.
Yeah, yeah. And I had the same thing with the science stuff, right? I was like, but how do you explain these things?" Like your science, because science is very rule rigid, like
Yeah.
this is the equations and that sort of stuff. So, but we did talk about how I said, well, I find it funny that religion will say, that you can't do this stuff, but like literally the Bible is like angels talk, God talks through people, like Jesus got up and like showed, like after he died, he came out,
He
and
came out of
talked to
the
people.
tomb and talked to,
Yeah,
he, as a dead person,
yeah,
talked to live people.
yeah. So,
So, and that's the way it was explained to me when I spoke to this spiritual mentor. And, I said, I apologize if I'm crazy,
mm,
but this is what's been happening. And he just looked at me and he said, well, why does that seem so strange to you? Because the Bible's full of people
yeah,
talking to
full,
dead people. The
full.
Bible is full of people that had dream
Yep,
interpretations, that people would dream dreams and
and it
gave
would
them
come true.
insight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, to me, it's full of that intuitive stuff.
Hmm.
So why is it that religion teaches one is correct and one is so wrong to the point of you're damned if you go into it?
Yeah.
And that was me coming into my own realization that quite possibly I wasn't taught the whole story.
Right. And I got chills right
And
now.
and
Like,
at that time, even my family and friends, when I started on this journey, were fearful for me that
of
I was
course.
going into the big dark side.
Hmm.
And the way that I explained that and what I said to people is, you need to trust that God
Hmm.
is big enough to let me know if I'm going into something that I shouldn't.
Right.
And I'll be the first to admit that, number one, I will never play with Ouija boards.
Hmm.
I don't believe in that. I believe that is opening up a gateway to the dark side that I don't want to go to.
Hmm.
So I do believe that, spirituality can give you insight into what's good for you and what isn't good for you.
Right.
And that's what I said to people who loved me, who were concerned that I was going into the dark side,
Hmm.
was trust that, you know, the God that you believe in is big enough to show me. Because
Right.
I was just on an exploration journey,
Yeah.
just like, just like way back in time,
Yeah.
Christopher Columbus was
Yeah.
exploring. I was exploring a whole new world to me.
Hmm.
And it is. And I've now come to the realization, and when I talk about it, I tell people, I believe that our human brains only have the capacity for a pinch
Hmm.
of what is truly out there in the universe.
Yeah.
Like, if we spend every day of our life trying to understand the supernatural world, we can only get this much.
Yeah.
And that's where now I look at it, that I'm open to endless possibilities
Right.
when it comes to spiritual woohoo.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because when you talk about that, like, so of course, coming from the science world, but like I said, I still had one foot in the woo woo because I think even my family still like it still had that. So it kind of the stories and the things that would be talked about and the things that would happen and stuff. In dreams we were allowed to do anything. We could talk to dead people, we could predict the future, we could whatever, find lost things. My mom did that a few times. So there was still a little bit of like an encouragement, I guess, in that it just was not really supposed to be done while you were awake and stuff because then you're going crazy. Um but sometimes those things are again based in fear and based in a way of like the traditional conditioning, because like I said, even without having even science or religion, but like our TV shows and our movies, like if you think about the horror movies that we watch and the TV shows, even like I'm thinking about like Ghost Whisperer or things like that, and like they'll show like gory images or they'll show like things flying around the room and like
Yeah,
people getting pushed down the stairs, like all of those kind of things. So it does, like if you're afraid of it, you're not going to see the stuff, you're not going to experience the stuff the same
right,
way because you're going to like block it out. And I firmly believe that also, like if your loved ones are gonna like make you afraid, they're not going to come to you,
right.
and you block it kind of thing.
Yeah,
um but why for some reason I just pointed out, this just jumped in my head. Why this was, I think, for me important for us to share is because I kind of felt like with our audience, yes, we toed around it, we would talk about it, we would throw the things in, but we hadn't really like said it, this is part of us. And so I kind of felt like without saying this is part of us, kind of limited sometimes some of the things we could talk or some of the avenues we could go down.
right.
And so I wanted to make sure that like people understood it, this is where we are. And it's making me think, a couple of times I've been thinking about our book last year that we were so excited to do, which was Spiritual Encounters. And we thought, because Maggie and I actually met through a spiritual group. That's how we
Hmm.
actually met. Which met once a week on Mondays. Or did it start on Wednesdays? I can't remember. It moved. I can't remember. I think it was started on Mondays and moved to Wednesdays or
Yeah,
something
I
like
think
that.
so. Yeah,
I can't remember. But anyways, we had gone and we had done it this weekly, and we were learning new things together, and it was amazing. We started taking some courses together. We were attending different things, and we got into this group, like even Facebook, like we have mutual friends because we gathered friends from the spiritual world in the Niagara region. And we were like, hey, this is going to be a book. It's going to be easy to get people to write for, where it's going to be amazing. And so we put it out there, and we heard crickets. like and
and not only did we hear crickets, we heard negative
well, you
things
did. I didn't hear
about the book.
anything that, but I just heard crickets. And you actually heard negative things about the book. And like people being like,
How could you do this? I can't
yeah,
write in that because then
yeah,
I'm going to out myself.
yeah, like
And
things
that was
like
my
that.
first time realizing that people do live in
Yeah,
fear of authentically being who they are. I
exactly.
thought I was, when this was happening to me, of course, I thought I was the only person who lived in fear that people
Hmm.
would think I was crazy or out of the
Out of
knowing,
touch with the reality. Yeah.
like out of touch. But apparently it's a real deal for
Hmm.
a lot of people who delve into a spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
You very quickly decide what you can share with who.
Right.
Where now I'm becoming the kind of person who I'm not afraid to share who I am with
Hmm.
people. And if you don't like it, you don't need to be around me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same token, I also don't push it down people's
Right.
throat. But
Right.
I do authentically live who I am
Yeah.
and encourage other people to authentically live who
Right.
they are. Because do I think that what I believe is the be all and end all of everything? No.
Hmm. Right.
I think I know this much,
Hmm.
this tiny little bit of what there
Absolutely.
is out there, because
Absolutely.
I think my brain can't handle all there is out there.
Yeah.
And I think, and I often speak of it even for mainstream religion, I believe that all mainstream religions have part of the same story.
Hmm.
If it all is based out of love, it's all beginning in that place of love.
Hmm.
And where they get caught up in stuff in the semantics of beliefs
Right.
and that kind of stuff. And to me, I choose to no longer get caught up in that and believe that all things are possible,
Right.
and that if it begins and ends in love, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And um I mean, it's not to say that there aren't going to be things that you might come across, like you say, with the Ouija boards, right? That are considered, this part that
Yeah.
you're not going
Because
to
I
mess
do
with.
truly believe there is a dark side of
Right, right,
spirituality.
right,
There is a dark side,
right,
because all that there really is in the world is light and dark.
right, right,
So if there is light, there has to be dark.
right, right. And so that's what I mean. Like, and it's not to say that that doesn't exist and that, people can't experience that. It's just that your focus is on like that the things that you do, the things that you get involved in. I keep wanting to say something else, but that's a censorable thing. So I don't it's the F word. We don't want to use that. The things you want to F with, I'll say that, are the things that come with light, like with
Yes.
expansion of, and that's kind of the way that I explain light as well. Is that it's expansive, that it's inclusive, all of
Mhm.
those kind of things. It's free will, like those are all of the things, unconditional love and being open and all that. And yes, we do have the shadow sides of ourselves, of either actual, like, our wounds and traumas that we're dealing with in our life, or even generational ones that
Yeah.
we've taken on. And some of us were or are here to help break those generational quote unquote curses or traumas or wounds and those
Mhm.
things. And some of us are here to you know pave the way. So that's what I want to say to anybody who's out there who's finding us and starting a spiritual journey. Is at first it can seem very lonely, because you feel like you're the only person in your group, your friends and your family, which that's kind of the way you were in this,
Yeah.
is then you start to go, who do I talk to about this? How do I find out more information? I don't know what to do. And so you started looking for other groups and other people, and that does tend to
And you
happen.
just ask the universe to open up doors for you and then
Mhm.
watch.
Yeah. But you don't have
Ask.
to get rid of everybody that you had
No,
either, right? Because you still have friends and family that you had before.
I never
Yeah,
got rid of,
yeah, yeah.
I never got rid of people,
Right, right,
because the greatest witness that my life has been for people to see me change.
right.
And we talk about it all the time that you don't get to see that because
Yeah.
you didn't know the before Maggie.
Right.
But the people who are still in my life who do know the before Maggie can see a changed person,
Right.
can see that I'm very different. And, I had a friend a few months ago tell me, I didn't know what you were getting into, but whatever, there's something to it because you're different.
Yeah. And
There's
in a
something
good
to it
way.
because
In
you're
a good
different
way too.
in a good way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because as much as we believe wholeheartedly that we can manifest things, I personally choose not to manifest evil,
Hmm.
not to manifest things that don't come from a place of love. Does
Hmm.
that mean that I'm always perfect at it? No, because I'm a human being
Right.
and I still have the human side of me. But what I do notice that now, where I am revealing my spiritual side, is I choose to live from a place of love. And when I live outside of that, I don't like how it feels.
Right. Right. And I
I
think that's
like
the
how it
main indicator
feels.
of it, what it is that you're involved in is how it makes you feel when you're
Yeah.
in that thing. Um
Yeah.
now I do have a question because I have the moment, like I have like not the moment that I went into the spiritual side, because like that, like I said, I kind of always was a little bit in it, like even though it's scientific and anything, I did believe that when you died, you could talk to people. I did believe like the soul continued on. I did believe that there were angels that would help, like that kind of stuff. um I still, I believed in unicorns. I still do, like those kind of things. It's just a different frequency, different energy. I have a pretty pretty wide um thing of beliefs that I have that are outside of the mainstream narrative,
Yeah. Yeah.
conventional narrative, now. But I think that the real like big impact that kind of started my like whoa was actually the movie The Matrix, which, like, it was a time of it saying that the world that Keanu Reeves's character was actually living was a hologram, and it wasn't real, and that his body was actually like he was in the future, and what he was being shown was actually like a computer simulation that he was in. And in that moment when I saw that movie, I was like, wait, that could be real. Like, and it had me questioning reality, like the way that
Hmm.
I perceived it and what I had been told, and that kind of thing. And it stepped out, like it I don't know necessarily that I, think that we are in that exact thing that I had in Matrix, but it did allow me to understand the concept of like a higher self being plugged into the body,
Yeah.
and that, the higher self, because it's kind of like, yeah, like the soul, like the thing that is eternal of me, of Buddy, that will carry on after I die. And as Abraham Hicks will say, like the meat suit after my body is it stops working, and I transition into, it's like kind of like my soul just kind of unplugs from the body and retains all the memories and experiences and everything that I've had. And so that's kind of what, to me, was that. Do you have like a moment, other than, of course, the friend coworker who had come to you? Do you have like a moment, even when you were a kid, of like questioning what you had been told? Or
I find there were many times as a young person questioning my religious teachings, mostly because there were parts of it that didn't make sense to me because I was always getting the feeling of I had to be good enough for God. I had to be good enough to get into heaven. Where what I have since come to understand and believe is that Christianity, Christ, of what it teaches, Christ made me good enough
right,
through his choosing to go to the cross and die for the world.
right,
So if he already took that on, why do I need to be good enough?
right,
And that's the thing that didn't make sense to me is if he already took care of all my sins, why do I still have sins?
Yeah.
Like, it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And now I have come to believe and do teach that we are already good enough.
Right.
We already tap into our birthright. You know, it's like, I'll use the example all the time, being as the royal family in England.
Yeah.
Do they, for 1 second, ever forget their birthright? No.
Mhm.
They are royal bloodline, always, forever, no matter what they do.
Right.
And me as a human being, my spiritual birthright is just that.
Mhm.
I was born good enough for God. I was born good enough for heaven because it's my birthright. It's who I am.
Right.
It was given to me. I don't have to earn it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that was probably the biggest hurdle that I had to get across. And there's sometimes when still those old recordings will play,
Right.
and I'll go, oh, well, what if I'm not good enough? And I
Mhm.
go, oh, back up. So, yeah, I think that there are those defining moments that
Yeah, exactly. That
that
looking
do it.
back, you're like, oh, that's when I had.
That's why that never made sense to me,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's like I listened to a podcast and I don't even remember who it was, but it impacted me so much because they said, when you think of it in terms of heaven and hell, this person who created hell, so to speak,
Right.
that we're all doomed to go if we're not good enough for heaven, does that even go along with the character of God?
Yeah. That was the
And
thing. Yeah.
does it line up with the
Yeah.
character of who God is? And the answer is no.
Yeah. As a kid, that was my biggest like question, or my biggest like, well, there were two, but that was really a big one, was the idea of hell, and the idea that, if this loving God, who was our father, who like created us in his image and in all perfection and in all this, that he would be like, oh, you darn screwed up, now you're gonna eternally like pay for, and you can never redeem yourself. Because yeah, even as a kid, I always knew that people could redeem themselves. I had seen people
Yeah.
who even who change their lives, turn their lives around, and like
Yeah.
were loving, caring people. So I was like, and I always could see like the good in people too. And so to know that there were good in people, and that all it took was like one little choice that they would make, and they could just at any
Yeah.
moment be somebody
And
new.
those kind of things impact you from a very young age,
Yeah.
because I remember, and I don't even remember how far back it went,
Hmm.
but I remember as a young child thinking that I could just accidentally end up in jail,
Mm.
that I could just
Like as a
end up
kid.
in prison, like as a kid,
Wow.
thinking, you know, I could just, and I used to have nightmares of
Wow.
going to jail. And it was like, I don't remember even how far it went, that it grasped me that I had to do something to
Yeah.
get sent to prison
Right.
as a human being, because I just thought you could just accidentally screw up and go
Mm.
to jail. And so I think it's kind of like that,
Hmm.
that sometimes those things that don't line up, when you're a young child and you hear about that, you do think you could accidentally end up in
Right.
jail.
Yeah.
Just like I could accidentally end up in hell,
Right. Yeah.
and how much that impacts. So that's kind of how my spiritual journey changed,
Yeah.
because, and now I use that as my bar, as does it line up?
Right.
There are
Right.
many things about my Christian background that I still embrace,
Of course.
but there are many things I don't,
Right.
because they don't line up.
Yeah. My other thing was that you had to go to church to talk to God. That was because there, for me as a kid, again, like you said, is like what you're observing, what you're witnessing. I'm like, but like I also would see in TV and movies the little kids beside their bed praying at night, like talking to Jesus, talking to God, doing their prayers, and I was like, but like how come they could talk to him then, but like you're saying I have to go to
Or
church,
before
but
you eat, people who
yeah,
pray
yeah,
before they eat.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, what about these times? Like, they're still talking. So, like, I was like, that made no sense, because I was like, well, what about the people who live, in the 1000, the 1100s, the 1200s, that they didn't have a church because they lived really far away. There was no church in their area. Like, so too bad for them. Like, they couldn't. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's right. I was like, I always felt that I knew that I had a connection to the source. And I was like,
And
no.
what if it blows your mind a little more to know that you can talk to God without even using words?
Right. Right.
My heart can speak to God.
Right.
My soul can speak to God.
Right.
My tears can speak to God.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad we were able to share this today, because I do feel like the reason for me, like I said, was mainly because I want to be able to have us talk about topics that some people who might be just finding their spiritual journey, their spiritual awakening, they're just embarking on it, can also maybe tap into our podcast and find something they can connect with, and that they can see themselves in, and know that yes, it may feel scary, because starting to like question your beliefs, which our beliefs are like our basis for who we are. And
yeah.
so once it starts to rock and you start to go, who am I? What is life? Who are the people around me? Like, that whole thing, it can feel very scary. And maybe listening to us talk about the things that we talk about can help people say, I'm not alone. And that to me is why I wanted to share today.
And that's very much what we want people to know with
Right.
all of our podcasts, is that you're not alone.
Right.
Our topics vary.
Yeah.
Because, maybe not everyone will resonate with you. There are people that spiritual talks like this, they don't want any part of. That's
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Maybe
We have
one
other
time we talk about pets, or going out for dinner somewhere special.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be an abundance of things.
Yeah.
But it's all about letting people know that in this journey of life, we are not alone.
Right. Exactly.
In more than one way.
Absolutely. So I think we're gonna close it off for today. We could talk about spiritual stuff all like hours. We
For a
do.
long
Why
time.
do I say we could? We do. We have. So I think that we'll save that for other episodes, to have people coming back and listening to us. And but in the meantime, if you want to be a guest on our podcast, we're always looking for guests. You can email us at ataboveandbeyond@gmail.com, or visit our website. You can visit our website to find other ways to contact us. Also, to find out what books we're going to be writing, and if you would like to include yourself in that and the other things that we have to offer. Who knows where we're going with that. So that's ataboveandbeyond.com. Yeah. And otherwise, see us every Monday at 11 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere else you get your podcasts. Bye for now.
Bye for now.